just when you thought it was safe to go onto iTunes. This is Next Level Guy, the only website that makes self-development as fun as going to the movies. It's time to take the red pill and escape the Matrix.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Level Guys Show podcast. Today's guest is Dave Camarillo. He's the owner of Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu. He's a feared competitor, inspiring coach, and an all-round awesome guy. In this interview, we discuss martial arts and how they can make you fight your demons and win the life you truly want. But first, a quick word about our affiliates. We have some awesome deals and special offers available to our lovely listeners. To see them, please go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates. That's www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates. I'm currently loving the Tools of Titans book from Tim Ferriss. It gives you a breakdown of what makes some super successful people so good. The Natural by Aristide Max. That helps you get great with women and lets the real you come out. And the gorgeous whey protein from the Protein Works, which I'm now using after every gym session. If you also want to learn to be a great in the gym, you should check out The Lifting Lyceum by Greg Nichols and Omar Usuf. All the links and more from this interview are available on nextlevelguy.com/27. Remember to leave your comments and feedback there too. And now, let's get to the interview with Dave. I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much for doing this, David. I really appreciate it. But for those who don't know who you are, could you just give a little bit about who you are and your background?
Yeah, so I've been doing martial arts since I was 5. My father was my instructor, so I kind of grew up and was groomed to be a martial artist. First martial art I started was judo at the age of 5. Got my black belt, I think, around 18 years old or 17 years old. And then I started jiu-jitsu at 19, so I was doing both at the same time. This is Brazilian jiu-jitsu with Ralph Gracie. Got my black belt, I think, when I was about 27. Competed kind of back and forth. So I'd go to San Jose State Judo Club and then go to Ralph Gracie's at the evenings, kind of doing a double header. So I was training both at the same time. And then I got a job at AKA, did that for about 8 years and trained fighters. And now I have my own academies that are called Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu, in which I focus on both sport and self-defense.
Okay. And that's something I was very interested in, was the hybrid martial arts, and I noticed that you have such a loyal fan base. From researching, I noticed you're known as something of a revolutionary in terms of, you combined the judo and the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which haven't been done before. So what did that sort of teach you about combining the sports? Was there a reason that you switched between them?
Well, I think first and foremost, I don't consider myself a judoka. I don't consider myself a jiu-jitsu, guy or an MMA guy. I've studied so many different arts that I just consider it all fighting. So we have a saying that fighting is one art, and what you do for development is a little bit different than what I call your A game. So my A game is fighting. If we're under grappling rules, then I'm a grappler. I'm not a jiu-jitsu stylist or a judo stylist. What that does is it would bring a narrow view into what I'm able to accomplish under the rules that are set in judo or jiu-jitsu, respectively. So when I grapple, we'll kind of control the rules a little bit, and we'll say there's no pulling guard, for example, today. And what that does is it changes the mindset and changes everyone around me, because if I take away that, then you're forced to grip fight me and you're forced to try to throw me. That does a couple things. It gives me the opportunity to throw you, but also you develop something that, at least my partners do, something that's outside of their comfort zones. And I think that's what I've done when I've transitioned between jiu-jitsu and judo and everything else. Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, is step outside my comfort zone and then utilize those skills depending on the rule set that I set for me and my training partners. So I think, the transition between judo and jiu-jitsu was a very natural fit. It's not like striking, because you can't strike in in grappling tournaments or grappling rules. So it naturally helped me. The guys that I felt, had good ground games, I would outgrip them and throw them. The guys that I felt would maybe out-wrestle me, I would just pull guard and use my jiu-jitsu. So I felt that it increased my options to neutralize an opponent that was good in a certain area. I had more options to stay away from their strengths.
And is this something that, you think all, like, that we as men are struggling with in today's society, that we don't get out of our comfort zones, we don't learn, and we don't adapt to different situations?
Yeah, I think some do and some don't. Remember, in the martial arts sense, I wouldn't say that's true. I think maybe in societal sense, yeah. But in martial arts sense, I mean, now we have MMA. And MMA has revolutionized our understanding of fighting. Nothing else will ever do that again, unless you put a sword in somebody's hand and go back to the days of the gladiator. But it has absolutely revolutionized how we understand movement, how we understand fighting. And this goes all the way into applications outside of just martial arts. This is law enforcement, military, where people are actually putting themselves in danger to save lives and do other things. I think societal, I mean, I'm not everywhere, but from what I see, remember, we're bombarded with sensationalism. Media has an agenda of sensationalism, which essentially is we need to sell advertisers to other groups. So the way they do that is they choose stories that are, I mean, I don't want to go into this too much, but it's so obvious. They choose stories that are, if there's a riot, they want to, close in on that riot, or it's the way they articulate things. So my view is not perfect like anyone else's when you look at like media and how I understand the world. So, but my perspective is, I think a lot of day-to-day people have such an easy time in life. I can call and order a pizza, it's there in 20 minutes. I can call an Uber to drive me somewhere, whatever. Especially with the internet and social media and all these other things, it's very, very easy to survive and make it, especially in the United States and other countries. Very easy. It's very, very easy. Our lives are very easy. And what that does is it kind of like coddles us a little bit. So I think there's a little bit of that effect that I would say day-to-day people have that I didn't grow up with because, like I said, my father kind of chose my path a little bit. And I did it until I got addicted to it, and then it was my decision. But I think I see the world in spectrums, and I talk about this widening your operational spectrum. And what that means is it's not like if we take music, for example, and I'll go off on a tangent to explain my point, but some people like a certain type of music. They're very big on a certain type of music, and they don't like stepping outside that. And one thing I hear a lot is like, oh, I hate country, I like hip-hop, or I hate country, I like metal. Well, for me, as I grow up, and I think this is part of the maturing process, I like everything now. I like the spectrum of music. Name it, and I like it. I can appreciate it. It's the same for comfort levels. Many people can appreciate a massage when that massage is just making you feel good. But the second they go deep tissue and actually start repairing, it's another analogy I use, start repairing your body and getting in there, you're moving around, tissue that shouldn't be there, and you're breaking things down. Well, that's painful, and a lot of people stay away from that, even though it has a value to your body and your overall health. And that's the way I look at it, because I get worked on all the time. And I was thinking of this analogy. I think traditionally, and especially how when things are easy, people start getting coddled, and they can find ways not to step outside their comfort zones, therefore not widening their operational spectrum. And they're increasing their tolerances for day-to-day struggles.
And do you think like that's because of the comfort level and people are not pushing themselves, that the introduction of the UFC, where it's like down to the most basic component of manhood, the fight, is what draws people in? Is that why it's exploded over the years? Yeah,
I think. And again, this is just my perspective, but I think watching someone do something that you have no intention of doing is interesting to people. For me, it's not. I don't have that exact perspective because I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, I would say like, I don't want to wake up early and learn a skill and get choked, because those things are what crazy people do. I was sitting down with John Danaher years ago in New York, and we're talking about, he goes, Dave, you got to remember, this is years ago, but he goes, you got to remember, like, we're the crazy people. We roll around on the mat, sweat, get people's hair in our mouth, and try to choke each other. Like, and when you put it that way, it's kind of like, yeah, it's true. We are very far removed, I would say, with whatever normal is. And so when people look at the UFC and you talk about it, I mean, really what's paying the UFC salaries and whatnot? It's normal people. Normal people essentially are the ones that consume everything, right? And so normal people will look at that like a train wreck or a car wreck. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that's happening. And I think that's part of, but there's also an evolutionary kind of like primal trigger there that should hopefully always exist with Homo sapiens, that, that we had to fight to survive, and we used to live in caves and things like that. But I think those go hand in hand. Like, I could never do this. Let me watch it, see what it's about. And it's a fight. I mean, who doesn't, I wouldn't say just like to see a fight, but who isn't interested in a fight? Those are two human beings, in this case, very, very skilled, fighting each other. And then the way things are evolving, it keeps even, I would say, old school fans interested. And that's the way MMA, has done this. MMA is not the MMA 10 years ago, and it won't be in 10 or 20 years as well.
Because you notice that when, if somebody starts a fight in the street, that everybody watches, even if they're sort of horrified by the barbarism of it, they actually still can't take their eyes off it. It's like we're kind of drawn to, like cavemen kind of attitudes. I mean, do you think you would have gone into martial arts if your father hadn't been sort of, a martial artist in his own right, and your brother, or do you think you would have been drawn into that?
It's possible. I think early on, I mean, look at the type of person I am. I have a very type A personality. I think that's genetic. I think you can hone it. I don't think I was born tough, but I was born with a type A personality. And those are two different things. So when we talk about, like, there's people with type A personalities that are not tough because they've never built that, I mean, and then there's people genetically born tough, or at least predisposed to developing toughness very easily. I don't think I was tough. I think I actually struggled. Sorry, my phone's ringing. No. I think I actually struggled at times. I was a victim of being bullied, even in the judo community here and there, because there's bullies everywhere. And I remember times crying and just being kind of a whiny baby about things, even when I was young doing judo. I'm far removed from that now because of the experience and the process of, I would say, hardening myself, my body, and hardening my ability to handle myself emotionally. And that's through judo. Now, would I have naturally drifted towards martial arts? I think those things can be answered with influences, like positive influences. I think if I had a positive influence that directed me, hey, try this martial art, I don't think it's a natural thing for people to try, because when we grow up, essentially we start to become our friends. Tim Ferriss talks about, who are your top 5 friends. Essentially, you're going to be the average of those, or you're going to be on the spectrum top or bottom of those. And I think if you grow up with friends that are doing things probably they shouldn't be doing, or struggle in life, or struggle with, increasing their maturity levels, then you'll follow suit. So I think the opportunity obviously was handed down to me, but at the same time, when I was about 15 years old, I got addicted to training, and I had I've wanted to quit martial arts probably 200 times. And that's not a joke. That's literal. I've wanted to quit over and over and over again. The pressures of having my father as my instructor, the pressures of the training, judo is a very difficult art to train. The pressures of competing at such a young age, I wanted to quit over and over again. The reason why I didn't quit is because I got addicted to it, and I realized that I've put all this effort into it at 15 years of age. If I quit, all of that goes away. But I think martial arts is how some people say, oh, well, that's not my thing. Well, that's not your thing because you've grown apart or away from our natural tendencies for fighting, which when we were hunter-gatherers, we would have to fight to survive. And I think a lot of people have lost that in their lives as they grow kind of detached to where they came from. And so it becomes more difficult to find martial arts or say that it's your thing. When I hear, oh, that's not my thing, I just hear someone who could very well be brought back to their primal state, or at least part of that primal state, and do martial arts, and in a couple of years realize, wow, now it is my thing.
It's a great way of looking at it. I mean, something you mentioned there about the bullying aspect. When I was in primary school, I got bullied quite badly. I've got quite protruding lips, and it really affected me. But when I grew up in the Highlands, where there wasn't the option to, go to a physical outlet like martial arts and learn to deal with that, so I carried a lot of baggage, and it kind of had some issues with it later on in life. Whereas other people now have the option to go and learn, and it's more accepted rather than, the meathead approach that the old UFC used to have. So if somebody was listening to this, could you advise why somebody should start taking out martial art? What could they get from it emotionally, mentally, physically?
I'll discuss, I would say, my at this point at 41 years of age, why I see the value or what the value is for training, but at the same time, it has to be experienced. And I want to start with saying that martial arts needs to be experienced. So I wrote, I think, a post online. I said something about, the question comes in, what's an honest try for jiu-jitsu? Let's just take jiu-jitsu. What's an honest try? What's giving it an honest go? And I think until you get your blue belt. I used to give the answer, go 6 months, twice a week, never miss a day those weeks. And then I'm like, no, that's not enough. And if you want my honest answer, and me not being a businessman, because there's two different personas. There's me running a business and my livelihood, and then there's me, if you ask me a question, which is 99% of how I just operate. I'm not a good salesman because I don't lie to people. So if you ask me a question and I'm pressed, like, what's an honest go? Giving it an honest go. And I'm like, well, until you get your blue belt. And then, of course, that follows with, because then you're only one belt away from purple, then you're only one belt away from brown, then you're only one belt away from black belt. And this goes back to my true, honest opinion and understanding of, Homo sapiens and all the ones that I've been involved with, and my experience is 41 years of age, it is for everyone. Is self-defense for everyone? Yes, it is. Is, conditioning and increasing your tolerances overall? Yes, it is. Why isn't it? Is a higher level of fitness you never thought was true? Yes, it is. It is for you, because you're a human being in this world that many times, remember, bullies, when you think of a bully, you think of a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old. No, there's bullies at every level. There's 60-year-old bullies. There's 40-year-old bullies. And you're going to have to put up with bullies no matter what. For example, you can go to a coffee shop and someone's having a bad day and order coffee, and they just start. The other day I was vacationing, and just attitude I got from this, person serving me. And my jiu-jitsu reminds me, I don't need to engage this attitude. I don't need to fight this on a verbal level, whereas someone might, because they know they're safe. When we live in government-controlled societies, we're safe. That guy can't fight me, so I'm going to, increase this, I would say, not de-escalate. The overall goal of any situation is to de-escalate. But when you don't have that confidence and you don't have that martial arts training and you haven't gone through the conceptual understanding of self-defense, which is de-escalation, sometimes you'll escalate just out of frustration. Well, why is that person being frustrated at me? I'm going to go and stir this pot because I know I'm safe. They're over the counter. Whereas I just go, okay, cool, whatever. It's like when you train martial arts, you develop such a confidence where little things like that are absolutely a waste of time. I've been yelled at or cursed at, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to get out of your way. Like you go almost over. You don't allow yourself to be super vulnerable where you're just a pushover. That doesn't happen. But like you'll totally get out of someone's way. I mean, if you're doing it right. If someone comes in and tries to nudge me, which happened to me a while ago, I was walking down the street and this person changed their trajectory of their walking towards me to slam their shoulder into me. I call this the passerby. We use this in our self-defense class as a situational training. And I'm just walking down the street, and they're obviously these are big sidewalks. This was in Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you've ever been there, but very big sidewalks. There's plenty of room, and he comes in, and I'm with my brother-in-law and my sister, and like he comes in and like obviously changed his trajectory, like got in my way and slammed his shoulder and said, watch where you're effing going, right? This really happened to me like a year ago, whatever. And there's two ways to handle that. Like, oh, you want to go? And then I just, destroy the guy, right? Or I get shot because I didn't know he had a gun or whatever the situation is. Or I just track him and make sure he's good, situational awareness over, maybe he's got a buddy waiting for me, make sure and de-escalate the situation by not doing anything. So what does martial arts give you outside of everything I've just talked about? It gives you the confidence to see people that are bullies for what they are, and they are cowards. That's what a bully is. They're a coward. So, and I have no problem saying that. The world is full of negative realities. So when I see something like that, or they're just giving me attitude, I'm like, all right, you're a coward. Or you're at least being a coward right now, which we've all probably done it in our lives at least once. So you just look at that situation, you're like, well, the way I'm going to de-escalate this would be like, hey, maybe you're having a bad day and I don't understand it, or you want to fight me and I don't want to fight you, but okay, all right, we're good. It's all right, but I'm leaving. So he gets this surge of whatever it is, his pride. I kind of massage his pride, and that's okay with me, but I'm avoiding all of the bad things that can happen in a real fight, like me hurting him and getting in trouble, or him shooting me, or whatever this, or my family getting hurt. So my point overall is, when you give, martial arts an honest go, at least jiu-jitsu, I would start with jiu-jitsu for people who don't know martial arts, but you gain this ability to not only, physically control somebody as if they're like a child and they're the same age as you, and you can physically, through leverage and technique and experience, control that person, but you also can do it whereas, you know what, I'm going to massage your pride, you win this round, and there's never going to be another round, and I'm de-escalating just by being a really nice guy. That's the kind of confidence that you gain. So it's a mental confidence and it's a physical confidence.
I think it's quite amazing when you think about it, is that as you get better and higher up the belt system, you're actually more deadly and a better fighter, but you learn to be a better fighter, but you also learn that you don't need to fight as you progress through it. And you get to that point where it's like, if you did go, you could seriously hurt somebody, but you learn to actually let it go. You fight the urge to fight, so to speak. And I think that I really wish I had that outlet when I was younger. Thankfully, my nephews now have a training option for them, and they can learn how to control aggression.
Yeah. So the other thing, and you're pointing it out beautifully, the more you train, the less you want to fight. I mean, I think part of that also is, a 20-year-old will want to fight more than a 40-year-old, But at the same time, the other variable is, the more you fight, the more you understand how bad things can get. And I'm a big, I would say, supporter of somebody standing up for themselves. I mean, of course. I mean, I think we all have a right of self-defense that should not be a government right. It's a human right for self-defense. And so, for example, if I had to defend myself, people need to remember is, who will I be judged by? I'll be judged by people who've never trained a day in their life. And so they think it's very much like when you have people who've never fired a firearm judging a police officer in certain situations. Not to say they're even wrong, but their perspective is so ignorant. And so if I had to defend myself, and let's say I hurt somebody because maybe they're on drugs or whatever the situation is, what are the lawyers going to do? And this goes back to the sensationalism of our media. They're going to try to win. They're not going to go for truth. Truth doesn't pay them money. You know what I mean? Like they're like marketers. They're trying to win. So then I'm being judged by, and I'm trying to educate people. These are all the things that can go wrong. Then I'm being judged by people who are absolutely ignorant, totally ignorant. They think I can float and disappear and that I'm not human because I'm a black belt. And they would look at Dave Cameron. Oh, look at Dave. He's been training since he was 5. Look at his resume. He trained all these fighters. He trains military. He trains law enforcement. He should know. He should be able to use his hand like a Jedi and control somebody and force hold them against the wall until proper authorities came. You know, that's their perspective, which is extremely skewed. It has almost no relevance because it has no experience behind it. But if you had like a bunch of jiu-jitsu black belts that were, you know what I mean? They were like, well, Dave is, we know Dave and we're looking at the situation and he was forced to defend his family to fight this guy off. And in that, this guy got hurt. That would be a totally different version of what happened versus somebody who's trying to, like, when you do this. So Joe Rogan is the commentator of the UFC, right? Watch a fight on mute. And then watch a fight listening to him. He does get in your head, and he's rightly so because he knows what he's talking about. But he's somewhat narrating what's going on, even if you're visually watching it. He's narrating what's going on. Sometimes, most of the time, I agree with him. Sometimes I'm like, that's not really what I saw. Another way to look at this is if you take someone who's never watched fighting in their lives versus like someone who fights. Show them a video and then have them like articulate it in an essay. You know what I mean? Those are going to be two different essays. You know what I mean? Because of the level of experience.
That's something I've done, where my mom was horrified by the blood and, what she's seen as like a guy just getting stamped on, whereas I was looking at it as in, how he was trying to use a certain guard and, they were looking for this kind of leverage. And you see the, I don't know, what do you call it, like maybe the beauty of it, of the actual,
right,
the physicality of it, the control, the thoughts and the control of emotions to control your body and your, like, your heightened passion. And it's like Joe really pushes it, and he's somebody I really respect and would love to interview as well, but he sometimes does drive up the intelligently challenged people, some of them that watch it, and they can get them a bit kind of hyped and ready to throw fists themselves.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, I can't imagine a better commentator for the UFC, but yeah, that's funny. That's funny the way you say that.
So if somebody's listened to this, and, you said that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was a great one to try, and say they've got a gym down the road, they've got a selection of places, how do they know the best martial art for them? How do they know what's a good school, what's a good program to start with? Maybe they're outside your remit because you look like you've got a great facility, but say somebody that's in another place entirely, what should they look out for as warning signs?
I think look at a martial arts academy, especially someone who's never tried it. I mean, it depends on your age, and I talked about this on our podcast, but if you're 20 years old and you're like, man, I want to fight and I want to do, then you're going to have a certain perspective on what you're looking for. If you're 40 years old, you have a totally different one. So I'm just going to talk as if you're a mature adult with a mortgage. You know what I mean? So I think you should look for professionalism. I mean, when you go to a hotel, what kind of hotel do you want? You know what I mean? Like, now that I'm older, when I go to a hotel, I want a nice hotel. I want a safe environment. I just got back from Portland with my family. We stayed at the Monaco Hotel. I think that's the name of it. Very nice, very safe area, very, it's a high-end hotel. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind paying the money when it's high-end, and I like the professionalism across the board. Everyone you deal with there is professional. That's what I like in my academy. That's what I would like if I moved away and just wanted to start jiu-jitsu again. So right when you walk in, does it smell good? You know what I mean? Like, people come to our school and say, man, your place smells really good. I'm like, yeah, because I've been in gyms that stink, and then gyms that stink, you're going to attract only certain types of people, and they're not bad people. I grew up training with them. But as I get older, and I've never done this before, the tendencies for you to get roughed up in a place that stinks is higher than in a place that smells good. This isn't rocket science. So it's what you are looking for. If it was me, it's a professional place. They're very friendly. They're there to help. And then you look at the students. Now, you could have a good instructor, but the students are like, you know, you're a minnow and they're sharks. And, you can see them salivating when they look at your elbows. You know what I mean? They want to just – so a very high-end competition environment is not good for brand new students, in my opinion, because you're throwing them to the wolves. I hear a lot of people complain about other schools that say – and there's plenty of good schools. Like I said, it depends on who you are. But they say, like, oh, they threw me to the wolves. Well, these days – I would say the level of professionalism is much higher in terms of ratio than it used to be in my day. In my day, it's come in and we're just going to fight. I think the Gracie Academy always brought in a level of professionalism, but I think a lot of schools didn't. These days, I think things are changing. AOJ is very professional. Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu, our academy, is very professional. And there's a lot out there, like Marcelo Garcia is very professional. And it just gives you this vibe that you just feel warm, welcoming. I think that's one of the most important things, because if you're excited, warm, welcoming feeling, the rest is going to take care of itself to an extent. But then at the same time, if there's sports schools versus self-defense schools, a lot of it depends on what you want out of jiu-jitsu. For me, why jiu-jitsu, and I'll just ask this question and answer it, why jiu-jitsu? I just studying movement and MMA and striking arts and all these other things, jiu-jitsu gives you the ability to control a situation without smashing someone's head open. You know what I mean? Like, you have, when I talk about widening your operational spectrum, you have the ability to control situations, control people and human beings that many times doesn't exist with other arts, because it's so in depth on how there's so many different defenses to the way people grab. There's you sparring with someone else, learning relaxation, so there's less impact on the body. Again, it's one of the greatest. It is the greatest martial arts out there. I mean, I'm just absolutely convinced. So it's what you want out of it in the end, and are these people, what's their intention, and what are the students? Are the students helpful? I think those are the very, 3 key areas that I would focus on.
I've done judo, a couple classes in judo, a couple classes in wrestling and MMA and stuff, and they're all in different places. And I was going to go do an MMA class, and it was like you were describing each different gym. Like, one was smelly, one was welcoming, one was like no beginner classes. So I remember getting choked out by a guy in the MMA class, who was about twice my size, probably been there for about 5 years more than I had. And, he was just choking me out. And I felt like the guy wasn't caring. Like, there wasn't a beginner section that you could put guys who were new, who wanted to learn, but were very fragile, shall we say, compared to the guys who are looking for how to inflict pain,
Yeah, I think... when you say MMA gym, I'm like, well, I would put on the brakes. To me, that's a red flag just saying MMA gym, because, and some do it outstanding, but when we talk about like MMA is the most brutal thing ever created for empty hand engagements, like as a sport. So that's why I would start with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu schools where the gi that immediately slows things down. There's more control. There's more focus on control. And I'm not saying not go to an MMA gym, but I think it's difficult to create. I mean, we've done it, but it's difficult to create an environment, especially if you have competitor MMA fighters, that is conducive for brand new students. That's something that's very difficult to create. So what you experienced is very much like what I've seen in other stories of people coming into those types of environments and expecting to be catered to. So, yeah, that's That's nothing new, being choked out, because if they're like, well, this is MMA, that's their mentality. And I think the underlying issue here is in many arts, there's an inability, and we see this a lot in MMA, inability to understand or at least have empathy towards the person in front of me, because they come from different walks of life. They've maybe never done anything physical in their lives. And then you're throwing them in my realm where I'm super comfortable and I like punching people and choking people. And I'm not trying to scare people off or even give MMA a bad name at all. The reality is it's difficult to put someone in front, especially, younger students in MMA who are like getting ready for something. Those are two different realms of existence that should not be mixed together.
I mean, when I was rolling with the judo guy, for example, he would say, okay, I'll go down and I'll give you my back and try this, whereas with the MMA guy, it was more a case of he sort of just threw me down and quickly got my back and choked me out. There was no kind of learning, there was no structure. It was just a case of they wanted to win, whereas the judo guy looked at the kind of to develop me rather than, because he knew he was far more skilled than I was, but he wanted to bring me up, whereas the MMA guy wanted to knock me down. Knock me out. So it's certainly an interesting way, and I really like the way you put that, of why you shouldn't go directly into the MMA gym straight away, and how to look for a good class for you. So what do you look for? What would you like the ideal student to do, and how can somebody listening to this who's going into martial arts for the first time ensure that they're going to be the best student for you as the coaches, and they're going to learn they're going to be the most efficient student they can be?
Well, I think when you say the most efficient student can be, you need to look at yourself as a human being in other environments and just kind of take note, sit yourself down, because before you go into that academy, I'll say this: every single jiu-jitsu instructor or gym owner, academy owner, wants out of the new students is an honest go, and we already outlined what that means. And it's hard for them to, and it's a thing where I'll get a student and they'll not really give it an honest go and then just say it's not for me, and I'm like, okay, we'll be really nice and I'll try to talk to them, but if I'm honest to them, I would say, well, you didn't give it an honest go. To give it an honest go, you have to accept a certain level of, an enduring process. And enduring, what's enduring? And the root word means to suffer. Endurance. I can suffer longer than you can. You know what I mean? So it's an enduring process to an extent. If you go in there and get punched in the face the first day, well, that's the problem. That's not an environment for you. But if you're going into an environment that is very professional, people are very helpful, and you don't take it upon yourself to accept a certain level of, suffering. And these aren't marketing words. This isn't me on a poster selling myself and saying, this is the greatest martial art in the world, and that's not, no, I'm telling the truth. You will have to, at least on a small level. I mean, if you're sweating, that's a certain level of suffering. If you're having to show up at a certain time and finish the class, you're going to suffer through that class a little bit, even if it's a little bit. And you have to accept that level. If you don't, in my opinion, the problem isn't the martial art. The problem is you. You know what I mean? That's my point, is you got to pay attention to what happened previous to you walking to that academy. You got to know yourself, and you have to start righting some of the wrongs that exist in your natural tendencies.
I mean, that's the remarkable thing is, when initially I seen, I heard you in other podcasts, I thought, okay, he's just another martial arts guy, but I love the way that you look at things, and you're very sort of philosophical, and you're very kind of detailed oriented, and you seem such a great fun guy, and you make martial arts so encouraging and enjoyable for people. So is martial arts learning the same as learning any other skill? Because I noticed that you're learning guitar, and that you used to play chess. Are these kind of learning skills the same as learning a martial art? Or is there parallels that you could link between the two?
Everything's the same on a large level, especially, initially. So I believe in incremental intelligence. So incremental learning, incremental development, baby steps, we call it. So with military, we there's a saying, it's crawl, walk, run. And that's a spectrum, whereas crawl's on one side, run is on the other, and, walk is somewhere in the middle. And with guitar, I mean, I've been playing guitar for years with long breaks. So I used to be in a band in high school, and then I took a break. And so guitar is a good example. And so, for example, if I'm doing the chromatic scale, which is just I use fret 1, 2, and 3, and 4 on whatever string anywhere. Chromatic is just 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm learning how to coordinate my fingers to create a certain sound for the notes, right? So properly fret a note so I don't get buzz on the string, or you can hear it right, and there's some kind of it resonates a little bit. Well, if I'm working that and I'm working on my coordination, it has to be done with certain drills initially. So there's a drill where you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you go to the so it's E 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the low E. Then you go to D, then 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, A 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you go D, then you go G, then you go B, then you go E, and you're essentially incrementally coordinating your fingers to hit proper notes and work in unison with your picking. So you have two hands working together. It's very easy, in my opinion, initially, but it's like anything else. Like, I consider myself terrible at guitar. It's because I'm using my martial arts experience to set a spectrum, a proper ranking spectrum. You know what I mean? I would consider myself still a white belt at guitar, even though I can probably in a month play in a band and just do cover songs. But I'm still a white belt. But my point is the initial exposure to this type of, gained intelligence has to be incremental. And that's universal. And so you look at guitar and you look at exercises you can do, then you start looking at very simple, like, the major scale, learn the major scale, which essentially is just, it's the major scale. It's hard to explain, but like, you set yourself in a curriculum that will get you to where you want to be, and then you take it as far as you want. That's the same as guitar. That's the same as shooting. That's the same as martial arts. It doesn't matter. So initially you have a structured curriculum to get your feet wet. And then I think from there, your curriculum constantly evolves. And then you can take it in many different avenues, like teaching. So for example, when I started teaching, even though I was flying around and armbarring everybody, when I started teaching, I realized I don't know jiu-jitsu. Because my whole understanding of this new type of intelligence only existed on my performance against another person. But that's very short-sighted. So as you start climbing the ladder, you'll realize, and that's why I like the hierarchy of jiu-jitsu with the belts. Every new belt, you realize how much you don't know. It's not really how much you know. Yeah, you're gaining confidence, but you're realizing how much you don't know. And that's absolutely universal. So everything I'm talking about right now is universal for learning chess. Chess, I use very simple framework to teach kids. So for example, it's get your pieces out, control the bridge, and then castle. Protect your king. If you start with those three concepts, you're going to learn chess. Of course, you got to learn what each piece does, but you're going to learn chess. So if I do chromatic scale and guitar, I'm going to learn coordination, and at least that will be a framework to learn other scales. Same thing in chess. If I learn those conceptual understanding of chess, I'm going to be able to learn and go off in many different directions. In jiu-jitsu, if I learn what we call solo movements, so ukemi is part of solo movement, which is breaking the fall. Hip escapes create space, sprawling, circling, those things. Then I grab a partner and start utilizing those in the 6 different positions. I talked about this in the Tim Ferriss podcast, which essentially is, there's 3 guards and 3 advantageous positions for top, side control, mount, back, and then 3 guards, half guard, open guard, and close guard. Again, not talking about all these subcategories of positions, but just and that's experienced twice, top and bottom. That's 12 positions. So very simple. Jiu-jitsu to me is very simple. It's 12 positions on the ground. We're not talking about standing. And then you have 2 go-to moves each. So I'm not good at math, but that's 24 moves. You know what I mean? So if you have 24 moves and you just focus on that, you're getting your feet wet, and then you're starting to spar and you're getting experience. Well, that's an initial understanding of like set a framework where the language you're learning. So guitar is a language, shooting is a language, jiu-jitsu is a language. So start learning the language and just the basic framework to learn that language, and then you can do whatever you want, because human beings are, and this is going back to why do martial arts. Why do martial arts? To find your human potential. There's, when we talk about like people living in this world and just not really pushing themselves, they're not really, finding their human potential. And that's essentially what it is. We are human beings. And maybe this is a type A personality thing, but I think even type B should understand the importance of, I'm not here long and I don't know what happens after. So let's push the envelope and gain experience and skill sets and set good examples for people that are younger than us.
I love the way you look at things. That was a very, very detailed way of looking at things, and you took a very what could be a complicated sport, and you've made it so sort of a fundamental base of do this, 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 and this, and you can learn it. Then you break it down further into the more complicated aspects, but it's like, it just sounded so easy listening to it. I mean, did you use those kind of concepts when you transitioned from competing to coaching and then also to running a business? Did you struggle with that kind of change, or did you just do the same kind of approach?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially where it all came from. I in college, I started reading a lot, and I was struggling at a point where competing, I didn't like competing anymore in jiu-jitsu, and I was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't getting promoted, and I was kind of in a rut. And so what I did is I started teaching chess, which has very much to do with jiu-jitsu, but someone who doesn't understand what we just talked about would say those are absolutely totally different, different planes of existence, which I'll take that, meaning like they're so different. Like guitar and doing jiu-jitsu on the physical realm is very different. So guitar, all I got to do is hold that guitar up and use both hands. I don't have to protect my feet, my knees, my wrists, my elbow, how many things you can attack in a grappling situation. So in the physical realm, jiu-jitsu is very different than chess. So I did chess. And I remember just being in this rut, very frustrated, not getting promoted. I'd go to practice and destroy everybody, and that became boring for me. Winning is boring. The struggle is we have a saying, crave the battle, not the glory. I like battling. The battle to me means you're fighting back. You know what I mean? And that's another reason why in self-defense situations it's a joke, because for most situations, even if it's empty-handed, I had to control somebody, which I did in my own house one time. But that's kind of a joke because it's so easy. It's not really a battle. He's not really going to fight back. I'm just going to put him down and control him. Some would, but in this situation, it didn't. But I like the battle. So the battle is the process of getting from point A to point B. If you want to be at B and you're at A, you need to battle and struggle through that. Well, I adore the battle. That's one thing I like. That's why it's difficult for me when I'm hurt and I'm rehabbing my arm. And as I get older, it's easier to do that. But all I want to do is grab my buddy Barsati and fight him with Slayer blasting. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorite things to do. And then the other side of the spectrum, works super technical jiu-jitsu. I like that as well. But there's something in my mind that I think living is battling. So I think it's important to, maybe even chemically change your mind a little bit and learn to love the battle. I think I'm going off on a tangent. What was the initial question? Sorry.
No, it was. I mean, I was really enjoying that. I mean, it was just to see how you made the transition from being a fighter to actually the coaching and to the business.
Right.
And you made it a very good point there, is that you didn't want to just rest on your laurels. You wanted to keep pushing yourself and learning and finding another battle rather than just winning. Yeah,
and people need to remember, I did jiu-jitsu, but I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm not a judo guy because I've done everything, So what we do, and there's a lot I don't know. There's so much out there. took a class from my buddy Jared. We worked together, on projects, and I'm just watching him teach. I'm like, man, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? Like, I think you need to have people in your lives where you get to a certain level and you gain this immense confidence, and then the next guy is doing something that is like it's like the palm to your head slap. You're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then now I'll nerd out on it and destroy it and recreate it and just come up with other things that become not mine, because all of this was done before, but we get good at the presentation of it, the articulation of it. So going back to your initial question, I think I remember it now. Yeah, when I had to start that crazy word empathy and understanding the new student, because I don't feel that I was ever a new student. So I've never really felt like many people do when they walk in, because many people walk into an academy, maybe they're 10 years old. That's still kind of young, but then or some will walk in when they're 20 or 30. That's a new student. They have no grasp of anything physical, most of them. Well, I never had that. I was 4 or 5 years old, thrown on the mat, fighting my dad, So relating to that new student, I think, was the first approach for me, because I did not. I was super type A, super competitive, a meathead, There was a mean streak in me when I was competing. I just wasn't very nice on the mat. San Jose State, I just try to rip your head off. With Half, we would have monsters in there. I just try to destroy everybody in the room. So I had to take all of that and learn to be more of an adult, learn to be more mature, learn to start working on my presentation. And the first part of that was relating to the new student. Because a lot of people, when you're competing, you're a competitor. But I need to relate to that brand new student. And it helped me be a better human being. So that was the first step. The second step, I need to work on my presentation in terms of presenting what I know and giving it to someone and giving them a platform so they can run with it. And actually you see growth. Well, that means I have to do things slightly different than I do it, because I'm a very dynamic person. I'm very genetically fast. I can jump and do all these other things, right? So the brand new student can't do that. So this goes back to relating to them. So I had to break it down step by step and even change my own game a little bit, which I did, because you get way better when you start teaching. That's why I talked about before I taught it, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then you start working on your articulation, working on certain drills, working on understanding that framework I talked about, giving them a framework so that it's conducive for everyone. It's conducive for someone who has no idea what they're doing, and you can get the super athlete in there in the same class. And what you're doing essentially, and that's the spectrum, super athlete and brand new students never done anything in their lives, you're trying to slowly, incrementally, there's that word again, increase their tolerances, thresholds, desensitization to being held down, all these things, natural reactions, and the skill of anticipation. You're trying to raise that level. And with the super athlete, you're actually trying to lower his. You're trying to bring him down. You're trying to get him to be able to work with that new. And that's what I call culture. When you create a good culture in your academy, you have, and this goes back to choosing an academy to train at, look at their students. Are they helpful? If they're not, that place, that wouldn't be for me. I don't want to be anywhere where the students are not helpful. There's plenty of places like that. So my students, and we'll have, 20, adults on the mat, 25, 30 sometimes. Everyone in there, from the super athlete all the way to the brand new student, is going to help you. So all of that there's a lot of thought process that went behind it, and a lot of maturing in my own life. That's why I talk about before you walk into that academy and give it an honest go, look at yourself in the mirror. Because if I'm not working on me, it's difficult to create an academy that can work on brand new students and give them the experience that they deserve.
I actually was just too busy listening to that to actually think of my next question, but
let's keep going.
a light bulb sort of went off my head there, because I recently changed a role in my proper job. I'm trying to build this podcast into a full-time job, but I've changed roles, and I was just thinking there, I need to do that as well. I need to changed the way I look at the new student, because I actually deal with like actual students in a university, and I need to look at them being new and being empathetic to their needs rather than what I believe and what I've, in the last few years in my other role. And I'm sure it's probably just clicked how other people can use that transferably into their role in their life. And, it's, again, that's just the way you look at things. And I'm sure you must have made some amazing new fans today, because you blow me away with some of your answers. So something I've often wondered is, how do you deal, I've got an older brother too, and how do you deal with like your brother and your father growing up? How were you with the brother fights and stuff like that? Did it ever start getting like on the ground and like rolling, or was it just the usual kind of slap in the back of the head and run off kind of things like most brothers do?
Everything. There's a spectrum. So my brother was 4 years older than me, which is frustrating. I wish my parents had put us closer together, because I just got destroyed, because he started when he was 5. I started when I was 5. So by the time I was 5, he was 9. When I was 10, he was 14. When I was 15, he's 19. And he was at the same time genetically very talented individual who wouldn't need to work as hard as I worked, and he would accomplish more. So that was frustrating, but at the same time, like I said, frustrating is good. Like, we have these words and we immediately put negative connotations and like, oh, stress is bad, feeling bad is bad, or my feelings are hurt, and all that stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous, because you're not increasing your tolerances. So for me, when I say it was frustrating, that's actually a good thing. Like, anger can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing too, for sure. I was talking to I'm going off on tangents, but I was talking to my buddy the other day, and he's like, Dave, remember, anger is a good thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, if you're angry, use the anger, like channel it. It's like a move that you don't do, but someone else is. Well, just channel the move, and if it's working for you. If it's hurting the people around you, then it's bad. It's obvious when it's bad. The thing we're talking about isn't bad or good. It just sits there. Whether how you channel it is whether it's going to be a detriment or a value. So when I grew up, the frustration was a good thing. Getting beat up over and over again is a good thing. Like, the relationship I had with my brother Daniel, even with my father, I would start thinking, because I have frustration issues here and there, like, meaning I'm a homo sapien, I'm a human homo sapien, and I used to blame my dad. Like, I would sit there like, man, I wish my dad wasn't so hard on me when I was younger. And I'm like, that's a coward interpretation of reality. Yeah, my dad was hardcore. It was a different time. Some of the things he did is child abuse these days. And I thank him for doing it, because, it put me through an early struggle, which is a good thing. For me, I could handle it. And it has enriched my life, and I thank him every single day. So if you talk about my brother, it's the same thing. He would fight me and punch me. He'd beat me up in front of his friends just for fun. Just normal dumb stuff when you're kids. And that would carry into judo practice, and we would have battles, and I would try to destroy him all the time. Well, what's the lesson? Why is it a good thing? Or is this Dave guy just absolutely out of his mind? No, it's a good thing because of this. He would destroy me, and it wouldn't deter me. It would motivate me. So I channeled frustration to motivate me. I didn't use frustration as an out. And if you want to talk about, I would say my least favorite characteristics for human beings, it's I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to be stressed. I'm overly sensitive to everything. I'm offended. When you're offended, you're giving power to the person who's so-called, quote-unquote, offending you. You're giving them power over you. It is the absolute worst thing in our society. You need to take ownership. If there's an injustice, address the injustice professionally. Don't address it with, I'm offended. And so I'm just going to take that rationale into my life. I wasn't offended by getting beat up. I wasn't crying. Well, sometimes I was, but because it hurt. But I wasn't using it as an excuse of, well, I'm weak, he's strong, this is an unfair world. Life is unfair. We're all unique. Don't find an out. If you get frustrated, stand back up and crave the battle. Fight your brother. So that's all I did when I was young. So we joke, and I think one of the reasons why I got really, really tough, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, or tougher, there's people tougher than me. You know, it's just however tough I got, that big jump was largely due to me fighting my brother when I was growing up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I was growing up, I got a slap in the bum if I was cheeky. I wrestled with my brother. You know, we've played what we call British Bulldogs, where there'd be two groups, and one would charge to the other, and one group would try to stop the other getting past. You know, and stuff that nowadays is banned. And I think this is the problem, is that we let our physicality out. Nowadays, kids don't get that. You know, so this is why they get into fights and hassles and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, so the answer, like, my son is going to do martial arts. Like, it's not a choice. Like, me and my wife are on the same page. It's not a choice. I don't understand. I mean, if you're serious about, like, self-defense, why is it a choice? Are we serious about raising our kids, you know, in the mental side, meaning like arithmetic, writing, letters and the ability to write and articulate, things on paper? Is that important? Is that important for our kids to go to school? Yes. I heard physical education now is an option. What? Like, it's, that's insane. And so I have to, like, raise my kids, send him off to a school system that's going to, like, baby him, and then bring him home and try to correct some of the wrongs that they do, and pull, through martial arts training. And that's one of the things that I have to do. And it's life. But, yeah, we're robbing our kids, I think, a little bit,
That's scary. I mean, when we grew up, it was, you played outside in the morning at the breaks. You went out and played football at lunchtime. You had, a couple of gym classes a day. You go play football at night. And nowadays we're teaching them to be couch potatoes, with all the options. And you can order food online. Your shop can come to your door. You can even order a date online,
Yeah.
That
So
maybe,
yeah,
that maybe never came out the way I meant it. Like, but
no, it's funny. It's if that's but I think to counteract that, that's why I think martial arts is so important. I think my son is gonna be forced to go to school just like he's same as for judo. He's gonna be forced to do judo and jiu-jitsu. So I'm not gonna make him hate it. I'm not gonna force him to be an Olympian. I don't care if he ever competes. I really don't. If he wants to, I'll support him. But he's going to train, and the training's already started. He's not even a year and a half, and we're, I'll be like, hey, judo, and I throw that word at him a lot. Hey, we're doing judo, and I grab his wrist, and he starts smiling, and I just throw him. So I'll foot sweep him. I'll do also the gari on him, haragoshi. I'll just keep throwing him. And the second it's like he has fun and the twirling, he's getting desensitized to that and the ukemi. But the second I see a little change in his, he's like, I'm done now, but I'll stop. So the idea is to keep it fun and then throw the word judo. It's easier to say than jiu-jitsu. It's judo, right? And then I throw him. And he's like, okay, cool, judo, throw. It's fun. So I'll have that maybe a little bit of an advantage versus, no, get to practice. Oh, I hit my gi. No, I have another one for you like my dad did.
I mean, that's the way it should be. It should be fun. It should be physicality and, physical exercise should be part of life.
Should be fun to an extent, though. That's the thing. I think we live in man, I could talk forever, but like, we live in a black and white world. We do. It sucks, but, turn on the news. It's just all black and white. There's really no commentary. And it's very quick tidbits. Yeah, it should be fun, but it also shouldn't be. Things that are just fun are not a struggle. It goes back to it needs to be a struggle as well. And that's not a contradiction. So I think
everybody shouldn't get a participation trophy.
Right, and harnessing both the fun aspect and, wow, today's practice was tough. Because a lot of people will say, wow, it was kind of tough. All right, quit. No. There's going to be periods in your training, especially for new students, that it's not fun. Or it's not just 100% fun.
Well, I've noticed we're just going over an hour, so are you okay for a couple more? I mean, I've
Yeah.
literally got pages full, but I know that you'll be a busy guy, so I was just going to wrap up the next couple of questions, but I mean, I'd love to have you on again. I mean,
Sure.
you've blown by my mind about how enjoyable this has been. So I would there's a couple of fun questions I sort of throw in at the end. So if you just throw the first thing that comes into your mind, is there any movie fight that you've seen that even comes close to what a proper fight is?
Gosh, I'd have to think about that. You know what's funny? If I critiqued every fight scene, knowing what I know, I'd probably not like any movie, and I've grown to not do that. Same thing with firearms. I see everyone running around with finger on the trigger is so dumb. They're starting to get good support in that realm, meaning like people are if you just watch people, when you have a gun in your hand, like a pistol. Like I was watching Star Wars last night for the first time. I can't believe I just admitted that the Rogue Warrior, the Rogue Squadron or whatever. Because I used to be a huge fan, and now I just haven't. And she has this pistol in her hand, and her finger's off the trigger. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool. I can point it out. That means someone there who knows how to shoot is telling them to take your finger off the trigger. You don't walk around with your finger on the trigger, is my point. Because if a little knee jerk or move or slip, your finger makes a fist, that gun goes off. So when I look at fights, it's kind of the same thing. But I've just learned to just be like accept a certain level of ignorance. To not get in the way of me enjoying the film. So when I watch fighting, I look at it like, if you're super athlete, you can pretty much pull anything off. Like my favorite fighting movies, I don't care what anyone says, is Steven Seagal. I don't care what anyone says. It's very fluid. It's beautiful martial arts. It's fast. It's super aggressive. And he utilizes striking, grappling, not so much on the ground, but a lot of the lockups that he does. He breaks arms. I think it's awesome. John Wick was good. I really like the mixture between judo and jiu-jitsu. I can't think of a single fight scene, but that's probably one of my favorites because he incorporates the gun with it. And I like that because I say fighting is one art. I've been shooting since I was 5. I've been grappling since I was 5. I've been striking since I was 15 or I don't know about 20 years old I started striking. My point is if you're serious about self-defense, then you learn how to protect yourself with whatever's in front of you. So I like John Wick because he's mixes the judo, jiu-jitsu, and firearms. He goes one beyond me.
Well, I quite enjoyed, in the Casino Royale, the first Daniel Craig James Bond one, where it felt realistic. They were kicking each other in the face and trying to use the sink to drown each other. And whereas the John Wick and the Bourne, you actually feel like they were just trying to eliminate the guy. It wasn't kind of making it look special. It's just the guy's there. You want to eliminate him, get him out the way as quickly as possible. So, who do you look to as a role model in your life?
I don't have one. I have multiple, and I call them my friends. A lot of my friends, and they're not all my friends. I mean, I've known them maybe, but I'll look to John Danaher, who I don't even talk to much. I just pay attention to what he does, and so I don't have to really engage somebody for them to be a role model. John Danaher, for his ability to be very composed, very articulate, very intelligent, and win. He's a winner. When he puts effort into a camp, he's there to win. I like that. Marcelo Garcia, because he's a sweetheart. I mean, outside of him being the GOAT, he's when you're around him, you're smiling. I mean, there's just no other way to be, and that's amazing. And then some of my military friends who've, just been in situations, that I'll never dream of, in real Rambo type situations, and they've taught me so much. And I think my ability to learn from somebody who's done all these amazing things, and I kind of inject that in my overall knowledge of fighting. That's been unreal. So there's been some people behind the scenes that are absolute mentors.
And I mean, has your involvement with MMA fighters and the UFC and traveling to competitions in the world, has that changed your viewpoint on martial arts, or has it always just remained the same kind of your fundamental approach to it? Have you learned anything?
Well, I think MMA is. Go ahead. Have I learned anyone from what? I'm sorry, last part.
Oh, sorry. Have you learned from it? Like, has it taught you to look at the sports in a different way, maybe, or?
Well, I mean, I would just answer. I don't consider fighters martial artists per se. I think you can be a fighter and not a martial artist. I think there are some that are fighters and martial artists. Martial artist to me is a way to connect to others. It's a way to connect to the art. It's a way to connect to the where the art came from. So, for example, hanging in my academy, I have 3 individuals. Jigoro Kano, the creator of judo. I have Helio Gracie, the creator of modern-day jiu-jitsu. And then I have Masahiko Kimura, who's the warrior of the time. Like, he was a judoka that he actually beat Helio. He's to me, he's the sword of them both. And and I love Kimura's. So the lineage of it, when you do, it's kind of like life. Like for example, I'm a mutt, so my lineage. I mean, I'm an American. But I can understand like people who are, let's say they're just Chinese, having a strong connection to their lineage, their Chinese lineage. I can understand that because I have that in my family. My wife's Chinese, so. She's an American, but she's Chinese. Do you understand? Like, I'm a mutt. I don't have that same. I don't claim Mexican or anything. It's just like my martial arts. I don't claim anything. I'm an American. It's a culmination. So I think, it's just, same goes for what we're talking about. I think. I'm sorry. Remind me the point of where we're at. I'm going off on tangents. Go back to the question again. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. It was just, I'm not quite sure, actually.
I get distracted sometimes.
I mean, what have you learned from working
MMA,
with?
Yeah, so going back to, it's hard for me to consider fighters, martial artists. Martial artists to me has that close tie to lineage. Whereas when you start MMA to learn everything, you're learning it so condensed and so quickly. It's like me being a mutt, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to find parallels. I think it's difficult to understand where these arts came from, to really have that high level of respect of where this information is coming from. And I'm not saying MMA fighters don't, but there is a difference. A fighter fights, man, they're a competitor. A martial artist is not just there for themselves. They're there to be a good ambassador to the lineage. And that connection helps with that. So I think there is a distinction. I mean, there's no doubt there's a distinction. Some of the fighters I've trained are some of the best hardcore people I've ever, been around. But a lot of them I wouldn't consider martial artists. To me, their world revolves around fighting, and that's not what it's about. Your world should revolve around being a good ambassador and uplifting, like wherever the level of your art is trying to lift it, not just cash in. And I'm not saying anything against it. I think it's, careerism I think is super important, but I think there's something missing. So, what have I learned? I mean, I've learned how to fight from fighting fighters. You can't do that with a lot of martial artists. So I'll just go on the other side of the spectrum. Some martial artists are so zoned into being I'm a judo guy. And that never made sense to me. A lot of the judo people that I trained with back in the day, like San Jose State, never learned jiu-jitsu, for example. And I think culturally, judo is like, well, no, we don't do jiu-jitsu, we do judo. And their mentality is, jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas I think the jack of all trades makes you a master. But I think having a lineage is important too. Like, I think all of it's important. I came from judo that taught me to be a martial artist, and then I learned everything else. So
I mean, what's your take then on, say, Conor McGregor switching disciplines, and taking on Floyd Mayweather?
I think it's awesome.
Is that something you would consider? I mean, because you've got a history of switching the disciplines, but could you teach yourself to strike, like to boxer level pretty quickly, do you think?
No, gosh, no. No. Jack of all trades outside of judo and jiu-jitsu. That's what I am. Because like I did judo and you destroy your body. Like I did judo until I was 19, then I did jiu-jitsu and judo, got my black belt in both, and then I'm like, I had the decision, do you want to fight or do you want to teach? I'm like, I just want to teach. I lost the craziness of wanting to compete. So once that goes away, all I did was, all right, learn to strike, learn to wrestle, and I could strike with I was sparring with the top fighters in my weight at AKA. That was not a problem. Like I was fast. I learned how to strike pretty good. I worked with Javier Mendez, who's phenomenal. That wasn't a problem. And I could wrestle a bit. But you put me in a wrestling competition, I'm going to get destroyed. But then if you change the rule a little bit and say, okay, give me a wrestler and I can do submissions. Well, I'll destroy him. Like, for example, when I first rolled with Koscheck without the gi, I just took he goes, you want to roll? I go, yeah, I was like 27 years old at AKA. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he was a wrestler. I'm like, yeah. So I submitted him over and over and over and over. Why? Because I'm grappling, you're wrestling. You know what I mean? So I don't even need to be the best submission guy in the world. Now I have that as an option. So, for example, if McGregor fought Mayweather, I mean, this is like saying, the earth is round. You know what I mean? Like, he would destroy Mayweather. He would play with Mayweather. I think Ronda Rousey would beat them if they were in a bar. You know what I mean? And there was a fight. She would grab him, Mayweather, throw him to the ground and armbar him. Yeah, it's possible he would punch her too, but like in close quarters like that with clothes on, McGregor could go with underwear on, with nothing on, and Mayweather could like douse himself with that stuff you put on to make yourself super slick, and McGregor would still take him down and destroy him. So if you just change the rules slightly, it gives the jack of all trades a huge advantage. And that's a good example of articulating what a jack of all trades gives somebody. The mentality of, like, I think it's important to master a certain area. Like, I mastered judo, if you want to call it that. And it made it an easy transition to jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't believe in 10,000 hours. I think there's so many flaws with it, with that mentality of 10,000 hours to master. But you change the rules a little bit, a jack of all trades is going to destroy you. And in reality, in real world situations, it's not restricted rules. It's what can you create? You know what I mean? Some of the most successful business people are masters at being a jack of all trades. So what do I think of Conor McGregor and Mayweather? It's a boxing match. It's not a fight. And I think it's absolutely outstanding because I also respect the careers involved. In my opinion, McGregor already won because he got the $100 million. You know what I mean?
It's a nice payday. Yeah? And who are you putting your money on?
I would like to see McGregor win. Why? Just to mix it up. I used to not be a McGregor fan, and now I am. I'll be honest. Like, I'll go on record as a McGregor fan.
I am too. I mean, I feel like he actually goes out to challenge himself, where Mayweather seems to have been ducking recently. He likes the celebrity life of it, but not the actual work to earn it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And someone was telling me, like, they were talking about that Demetrius being the greatest of all time, and I'm like, no, he's not. He's not the greatest of all time. You can say he's restricting himself to one weight category. Well, that just doesn't do it anymore. What is the UFC? UFC is a business. And what's the business going to do? It's going to do whatever it takes to grow. Well, McGregor was perfect for the UFC because he'll fight anybody. He fights up, he fights down, he fights middle, he wins, and now he's fighting in boxing. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's unbelievable. And I'm used to be a purist and not be into it, but now I'm all for it. And people who don't like him, I think, are just crying. They're just, I don't know. Goes back to, it's funny how many fighters are like actually overly sensitive. You hear them complaining a lot.
I really like the way that you put it, because I used to always say to people is have many strings to your bow. Never stop learning, never stop pushing yourself and trying different things. And I really like the way you explained, the jack of all trade versus somebody who's very, like a master of one thing, and how they could get beaten by just changing the rules or changing the dynamics. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm definitely going to have you on again. But what do you want people listening to this to take away from it?
I think step outside your comfort zone, man. This is kind of doing a 180 or a 360 with this podcast is, and I don't mean to sound, so set in my ways in terms of how I look at people in terms of their skill, not their skin color, not the way they talk. What's your skill? Because a skill is a representation of enduring. Because everything is when you develop a skill, it's a process. It's an enduring process. And immediately when I look at someone who has high skill in many areas, that person isn't afraid to suffer. I have trouble relating to people that are afraid to suffer. And so if you feel a lot of like putting on the brakes, to trying something new or jiu-jitsu, step outside your comfort zone. Make it happen, and the world around you will change. The world around you will absolutely change because you changed.
I would like to avoid saying it, but, they'll reach the next level at that point. And for, you'll have made a legion of new fans here, but how can people keep in touch with you? How can they find out more about yourself, Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu, about, can they come to the gym? Can they go online and learn? How can we see what's next and how, your projects and what you do next?
Well, I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm actually going to be traveling to New Zealand, Australia. We're setting up affiliates over there, Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu affiliates over there. I tend to travel a lot, but I would love to travel anywhere in Europe. So if somebody has interest setting up seminars, I would absolutely adore going anywhere. I love traveling. To me is the greatest perk of my life and career. You can reach me. You find me on Instagram. It's at Dave Camarillo. You can probably message me through there, Facebook and all that stuff, Twitter. Yeah, there it is.
And what's the Guerrilla homepage?
It's guerrillajj.com, but it's Guerrilla spelled like you're a warrior in the woods waiting to stomp on somebody. It's GUERRILLAJJ.com.
Well, I'll include all the links and your social media.
And for those who travel, come visit me. Come train at my school. Shoot me a message. Let me know you're coming. I'll comp you guys. If you're out of the country, come in. Have some fun. We'll get together.
Well, what I could do is I can speak to some people in Glasgow if you'd be interested and see if there's anybody that could put on a session, and you could come over to Scotland and, we could maybe do round 2.
Oh, dude, I would love to. I used to watch a lot of football. I was a Celtic fan.
Oh, well, we could maybe even take you to a game if you come over.
That'd be amazing.
I can't promise it'll be very good, but
Well, because the Rangers got regulated or whatever, right? Well, I don't even know what's going on with that.
They're back up now, but
okay.
They started as a new company, so they lost a lot of the players. So it's a lot more homemade players now rather than just buying the talent in.
Yeah, when I was in Australia when Kane fought Nogueira and I was watching the Rangers Celtic game back in that day, right, like 6 whatever years ago. It was the most exciting game I've ever seen in my life. That kind of rivalry was just absolutely. I was an instant fan of Celtic, and they won 3-0. So anyway. Thank you.
Well, I grew up as a Rangers fan, so.
Oh, sorry, buddy. Sorry.
So, no, well, we could definitely get something interesting. I'm sure that there'll be, some massive hype for it. Well, I better let you go. I mean, I've almost been on taking up an hour and a half of your time, but this has generally been one of the best interviews I've ever had. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I'm sure you'll get a lot of fans from this, and we'll definitely set something up again for the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
That's it for another week. Thanks for listening. Absorb it, practice it, use it. Until next time, keep trying to hit that next level in your life.